everybody. Hello. Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Wednesday, March the 19th, 2025. On the show tonight, we found out that 4 Canadians were executed in China. The news just broke out today. Melanie Joly, our global affairs minister, is embarrassing herself on left-wing corporate media right now. We've got the story for you coming up. Also, Mark Carney admits, hey, look, there might be some conflicts of interest in this blind trust. I don't know. That's a job for the ethics commissioner. You mean Canadians don't deserve to know about these conflicts of interest until after you're elected prime minister, which could happen. My friends, the polls continue to come out swinging heavily, wildly, crazily towards the Liberal Party of Canada. Not so much in the West, but certainly in the East. And we're talking about the metropolitan centers like Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver. Those are the concentration of Liberal seats. And they may, in fact, be able... Now, I don't think they're going to form any kind of massive majority government, even though some pollsters are actually predicting that. If they do win, it will once again be a minority. Unless, of course, the NDP decides they want to join forces and amalgamate with the Liberals. And, of course, the Greens would be interested in that as well. Elizabeth May was talking about that just the other day in one of her drunken monologues behind the podium. Why does the left-wing corporate media pay any attention to her in the first place? I mean, she leads a party with 2 seats. Give me a break. She has no relevance whatsoever. None. I mean, she is barely above the PPC. Yes, of course, the Greens do have a presence in Parliament, but where's Parliament? Parliament hasn't been around since, last year? Because Trudeau decided he wanted to prorogue it on January the 6th. Speaking of Justin Trudeau, let me throw this up on the screen. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Is this supposed to be an attempt to stay relevant somehow, even though he's no longer the prime minister of our country? Justin Trudeau drops his first pictures as a divorced and unemployed middle-aged man. I think he put down just another trip to Canadian Tire. Maybe he's getting his new digs in some kind of livable shape Of course, they don't show you the security detail that surrounds him. Of course, that wouldn't make him look like the average, ordinary man. Here he is in a jean jacket and some kind of a baseball cap. Just hanging out at Canadian Tire taking selfies. Give me a freaking break. Give me a break. But anyway, sans Justin Trudeau, the Liberal Party may in fact win. They may in fact win, which could cause, I think will cause, a national unity crisis. And Danielle Smith has gone on the record talking about that, not specifically, but it was kind of a peripheral comment she made during an interview regarding the American-Canadian trade war a couple of months ago when she was down in Mar-a-Lago, or maybe it was Washington. I can't remember exactly where she was. She was sitting on the floor of some hotel room talking to an independent media, and she had mentioned this. We're going to play the video for you in just a few minutes. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sherry, watching on X tonight. By the way, all kinds of new followers on X and all kinds of new followers on Rumble last night because we could not air the interview with Dr. Anne-Marie Yim on either YouTube or on Facebook last night because of the sensitive and somewhat controversial, quote-unquote, content in the interview. As a matter of fact, I don't even trust X and Rumble. So the last 25 or 30 minutes were available only on shadowdavis.com for all access pass holders. Thank you very much for joining up yesterday and today. It certainly makes a difference and helps this show move forward. It helps this show stay on the air. So thank you very much. Hello, Linda, watching on Facebook in Trenton. Vicky is watching in Nova Scotia. Debbie is watching in Kipling. Hello, Terry, watching in Grand Prairie. Rock Girl is on YouTube, grabbing a drink and a puff. Before we get going, Patricia's watching in Grimsby. Hello, Carla in Calgary. Christine is in small town Saskatchewan. Hello, Jonathan on YouTube in Newcomerstown, Ohio. Jeannie's watching in Calgary. Robin's in Muskoka. Wayne and Patty watching in Norwich, Ontario on X. Kathy is watching in the Sioux. Lise is watching in Strathmore. Shelley is watching from somewhere tonight. Shelley, I don't know where you're watching from. Jackie is watching in Ottawa. Elsie, hello in Winnipeg, wherever you're watching from. Ooh, I didn't do Rumble. Let me quickly do Rumble here. Hello, Mouth of the South, and Notable, and Nutsy, and Retired Nurse 1958, and Gary Goodman, and Danny Drums, and Cedar Bum, and Potion 13. I think a lot of people have moved permanently after last night's show from Facebook to Rumble, which is absolutely fine with me. Do you understand that even without Facebook and YouTube last night, we had a peak live viewership of 2,500 people? That is between X, Rumble, the website, and Telegram. That is absolutely amazing, you guys. So thank you very much. Thank you for helping get the word out. This is so important that people hear this information that they had no idea about before. Weary Human is watching from Grand Prairie. Swirly Bird is here as well. Whatever platform you're watching on, you guys, please like, share, get it out there to as many people as you possibly can. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Let me throw this up on the screen. Oh, that's the video I want to play in just a second. Where is my thing? Oh, I know what I didn't do. I didn't actually share the screen yet. So let me share the screen here, and then we can start talking about Canada Nano Silver and show you their website. And, of course, my favorite product, which I really shouldn't have because they're all great products, but this one in particular is my favorite. It's because it gives you so much vitamin support and it tastes so good. The Immune Gummies. Simplify your daily immune support with convenient and delicious Nano Silver Immune Gummies. Each serving contains powerful triple-action Nano Silver, elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D3. Vitamin D3, we found out how very important that is last night in the interview with Dr. Anne-Marie Yim. And by the way, she has agreed to do a part 2 sometime soon. There's so much stuff, even with 2 hours in that interview last night, there is so much stuff we didn't get to that I want to explore with her. So part 2 possibly next week. Anyway, vitamin D3 in these immune gummies. This will help supercharge your immune system. Safe and proven Nano Silver works alongside your body's immune system to help you stay healthy and strong for everything that life throws at you. Kevin and Anna with Canada Nano Silver will be at The Canadian National Women's Show in Calgary in early April at Stampede Park. More information at CanadaNanoSilver.com if you want to know more about it. If you want to become a retailer, if you want to know more about these products and what they can do for you, hit the contact tab right there on the website. And of course, if you're looking for a retail location, there's over 35 across the country right now. Just hit the retail locations tab right there on the website, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Canadian Patriot is doing a series on the Liberal government, the Liberal Party in Canada, and notably its new leader, Mark Carney. I found this to be incredibly helpful for people. This is on YouTube, by the way. It hasn't been taken off YouTube yet. So if I found it on YouTube, YouTube can't ban me for playing it when I got it off YouTube. Canadian Patriot put this small vignette together. I believe it's about 6 minutes long. Let's have a look at it.
Now that Carney has been officially installed as the interim Prime Minister of Canada, the decision to replace Justin Trudeau with the much more vicious technocrat can only be understood by the historic role of the British Empire in using Canada as a weapon against Canadians, and especially Americans, going back for over 2 centuries. In the 19th century, Canada was recognized as a principal enemy of the USA. Confederate intelligence had enjoyed vast patronage and support by the British Empire through its web of intelligence bases in Montreal and Toronto. These Confederate intelligence networks not only coordinated terrorist operations against the Union from the north, but additionally paid and directed John Wilkes Booth to murder Lincoln after the war's end. These facts were outlined in detail in Barry Sheehy's brilliant 2017 book, Montreal, City of Secrets. When Cecil Rhodes's Round Table, founded in 1902, became a driving force in shaping imperial grand strategy in order to recapture the lost colonies of the Americas and establish a world federation under the City of London, it was Canada that incubated hundreds of Rhodes Scholars between 1907 through 1952, which then infiltrated the USA. This fact was exposed by American journalist Eugene Griffin in the 1951 Chicago Tribune article titled, "Canada Offers Fine Field to Rhodes Wards."
British-educated Canadians are in a unique position to serve Britain through Canada's influence on Washington as a next-door neighbor of the United States. Canada acts as a connecting link between England and the United States, helping to hold the neighboring republic in line with the Dominion's mother country. When General MacArthur displeased Britain and Canada by his efforts to win the Korean War, Canada's Oxford-educated Minister for External Affairs, Lester B. Pearson, complained that American-Canadian relations had become difficult and delicate. MacArthur was fired the next day. Pearson's Foreign Office staff was packed with Rhodes Scholars. 1 out of every 8 were educated at Oxford University on the scholarships created by Cecil Rhodes, empire builder and diamond mogul who wanted the United States taken back into Britain's fold. Other Canadian Foreign Office members also were educated in England. Pearson went to Oxford on a Massey Scholarship, endowed by a Canadian millionaire.
A career path that would be very familiar to Mark Carney. As the informative 2010 LPAC documentary, The Special Relationship is for Traitors, showcased, during the early 20th century, leading American military figures like Brigadier General Billy Mitchell understood Britain's role in supporting the Confederacy and Britain's manipulation of global wars. General Mitchell fought against the Special Relationship tooth and nail and led the military to create War Plan Red and War Plan Orange to defeat Britain under the context of an eventual war between the English-speaking powers. These plans became official U.S. military doctrine in 1930 and were crafted in response to Anglo-Canadian plans to invade the USA that had been drafted 10 years earlier, known as Defense Scheme 1. Despite the name, it is admitted by even the most ardent anti-American historians that these plans were entirely offensive in nature, as no prior U.S. plan to invade Canada then existed. War Plan Red was only taken off the books when America decided it was more important to put down London's fascist Frankenstein threat than fight Britain head-on in World War II. The Green Agenda's infiltration into U.S. foreign and energy policy considerations was also driven in large measure through the influence of Canada's Maurice Strong. From 1963 to 1970, Strong oversaw a vast reorganization of the Liberal Party, even bragging to his biographer Elaine Dewar in 1994 that he was on the selection committee that brought Fabian Society agent Pierre Trudeau into politics in 1963. From 1965 to 1967, Strong ran Canada's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, founded Canada's International Development Agency, which transformed the philosophy of international aid from assisting poor nations to build full-spectrum economies into predatory borrowing tied to conditionalities. He also mentored a young Klaus Schwab, co-founded the World Economic Forum in 1971, chaired the first UN Forum on Population in 1972, served on the Bilderberg Group Steering Committee, and crafted a worldview which became known as the Green New Deal and Agenda 21, launched at the Rio Summit in Brazil in 1992, which he also chaired. Today, the spiritual heir of Maurice Strong and the Roundtable movement has been set up to take dictatorial control of Canada under the suggested threat of a climate emergency. This spiritual heir of Maurice Strong and the Cecil Rhodes legacy is, of course, Mark Carney. In the next Canadian Patriot Short, we will explore Mark Carney's plan to control nearly every aspect of life via the threat of climate change, and the cabal looking to reduce Earth's population via the greatest financial scam of all time, the Environmental Social Governance Index.
Just that phrase alone, I'm surprised didn't get taken off of YouTube, at least not yet. Canadian Patriot putting together that series, and I'm hoping part 2 comes out soon. You can find that and share it with your friends on YouTube, you guys. It's very important this information gets out. Very important. Yes, a little bit sensationalized, but it certainly grabs your attention, doesn't it? Speaking of Mark Carney, let me throw this up on the screen here. Oh, hang on. Before we get to Mark Carney, we found out today that China executed 4 Canadians on drug charges. We only found this out today, even though apparently these executions were carried out last year or before that even. So from Reuters, Ottawa condemns Chinese executions of 4 Canadians on drug charges. Canada said Wednesday that China had executed 4 Canadian citizens on drug smuggling charges earlier this year, strongly condemned Beijing's use of the death penalty. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly told reporters that all 4 had been dual citizens and said Ottawa would ask for leniency for other Canadians facing the same fate. There are 4 Canadians that have been executed, and therefore we're strongly condemning what happened. Oh, thanks, Melanie. That's great. Separately, the Canadian Foreign Ministry said that Robert Schellenberg, a Canadian man sentenced to death in 2019 for drug smuggling, had not been executed. Canada-China ties have been icy since 2018 when Meng Wanzhou, chief financial officer of Chinese telecoms Huawei, was detained in Vancouver at the Trump administration's request. China arrested 2 Canadians shortly afterwards, the 2 Michaels, as you'll recall. Meng and the Canadian duo were released in 2021. Earlier this month, Beijing announced tariffs on over 2.6, that's U.S. money, $2.6 billion worth of Canadian ag and food products, retaliating against levies Ottawa slapped on Chinese electric vehicles and steel and aluminum products last year. And yet nobody is talking about China being a problem, even though they do pretty much control Canada's government. Many of the governments, provincially speaking, the bureaucracy, the courts, yeah. Everything. Maybe not China directly, but definitely their gangs are here controlling things. Most certainly. And they do have politicians in their pockets, obviously. Thanks to the work of Sam Cooper with the Bureau, we know at least a little bit about it. I found out that Sam is actually carrying a lot of information around that he has not put out publicly yet. And he does carry a dead man's switch, from what we understand. Again, that is only speculation. But it would be a good move on Sam's part to do that, just in case. Just in case. From left-wing corporate CTV, Carney insists he's following ethics rules with blind trust amid conservative criticism. But let's throw up this story from the National Post here. Carney admits to potential conflicts of interest with Brookfield, expects ethics screen to apply. Asked why he's not disclosing his assets proactively, Carney said that's a question for the ethics commissioner. What? Dude, it's not about the actual rules, which are lame. It's about the optics of the situation. And if you're not willing to disclose all of your assets so Canadians know exactly how much money you're worth, it's estimated he's worth anywhere between $6 and $8 million, although I would say it's substantially more than that. He's a globalist banker, for God's sake. He was a CEO of one of the largest investment firms in the world, kind of a mini BlackRock, Brookfield. Anyhow, I refuse to call him prime minister for different reasons than I refuse to call Justin Trudeau prime minister. Mark Carney said yesterday he expects to recuse himself from potential conflicts of interest related to his past work at Brookfield Asset Management. During a news conference in Iqaluit, where he pledged to increase military presence in the Arctic in a partnership with Australia, which he has no authority to do, Carney said that he expects the ethics commissioner to create screens which would ensure he avoids conflicts of interest in the course of his prime ministerial duties. What happens is that there's a discussion with the ethics commissioner. We should call him Marky two times from Goodfellas, because he repeats himself a lot of times. Ethics commissioner, for certain screens around certain issues, and that's a process that is underway, said Carney. I very much respect the system, BS, and those screens become public as they're developed. Carney struggled at first to understand the question that was put to him in French and to answer in that same language, but said that it's clear he expects the conflict of interest screen to apply to him if a government decision has a major impact for Brookfield. Asked why he's not disclosing his assets proactively, Carney added that's a question for the ethics commissioner. Carney's explanation Tuesday was a departure from the snippiness that was on display. We talked about that briefly last night and on Monday, I think. No, it was last night. From the snippiness that was on display the day prior when he was questioned about the value of the assets he put into a blind trust when he became Liberal leader, and any potential conflicts of interest that may arise. And on Monday, Carney took issue with the line of questioning, and his exchange with two female reporters ended with him telling one of them to look inside herself. That would be Rosie Barton of the CBC. Come on, Rosemary, look inside yourself. What potential conflicts of interest could there be? Well, I don't know. We don't know until you show us what these assets are, Mark. Don't sit there trying to play innocent, dude. You are a high-level World Economic Forum Bilderberg banker with assets all over the globe, thanks largely in part to your climate initiatives. So don't sit there and tell us, what possible conflicts of interest could there be? You start from a prior conflict of ill will. What? He's suggesting to a CBC reporter that she's coming at him with ill will and a wish for conflict? Does he know what party he leads? I've served in the private sector. I've stood up for Canada. I've left my roles in the private sector at a time of crisis for our country. In other words, he's the only one that can save us. I'm complying with all the rules. So that's what Mark Carney is talking about. Speaking of Brookfield, let's have a look at the assets of Brookfield by location from the years he was the chairman of the board of Brookfield, starting with the United States, 2021 to 2023. Oh, look at that. American assets have climbed 22.55%. I think that's Australia third down there. They've climbed 32.9%. What's that one? Brazil? That's up 32.89%. India, 10.31%. Germany, That's a biggie. 104.05%, but down 3.94% in Canada. Go figure. Go figure. Now, let me throw this up here. This is from left-wing corporate City News everywhere. New poll is showing, despite all of this, the Liberals are trending into majority territory. I know this is going to boil a lot of blood out there, but this sadly seems to be the case. Don't forget to like and share. You guys get this out there to as many people as you possibly can. With a federal election call likely coming in a matter of days, some are speculating now before the end of the week, and it's already Wednesday, so we could have some big news tomorrow or Friday, or maybe early next week. Remember, Parliament is supposed to resume on Monday. The Liberals are looking at a massive resurgence in the polls. A new poll from Angus Reid puts the party, which has been struggling for years, into majority territory. Phew. The poll shows the Liberals have surged to 42%, 5 points above the Conservatives. Just 3 months ago, the Liberals were polling at near all-time lows, 16%. But like in January, Angus Reid Institute President Sashi Curry says polls are just a snapshot in time and things could change between now and the vote. There is no way, my friends, in my opinion, that a poll will change this much in such a short period of time, especially when there's so many questions out there about this new leader. Like, where does he even live? Does anybody know if he owns a home in Canada? If so, where is it? Is it Ottawa? Is it Edmonton, his hometown, where he grew up, where he played hockey as a kid, a goalie? If this trend were to hold, we would be seeing a Liberal landslide majority to the same proportions that we saw all the way back in 2015. So it's really hard to say whether these numbers will hold, but it does represent a stunning comeback, at least for now. Eesh. Well, this is not good news. From the Calgary Herald today, Rick Bell wrote this editorial, and I believe that this is a possibility. This is what we had on the thumbnail for the show tonight. Separation? National unity crisis? Maybe. We'll get to that. If the Liberals beat Poilievre, all hell will break loose in Alberta. The Liberals under Mark Carney could win, and many Albertans will be outraged once again. And where that goes, nobody knows. Let me scroll this down here. There he is. I'm having a rough time. So Bell says, not again. Say it ain't so. What the heck happened? Hey, this conservative dude wants to know where the lost and found is so he can try to locate the 25-point lead his party had just a few weeks ago. This is straight from the file marked, "Are you kidding me right now?" He should have said right now. It's funnier. Are you kidding me right now? Another story from Believe It or Not, Ripley's. Now it's not one poll, two polls, it's many polls. They point to a trend, and you can't chalk this up to some lefty conspiracy. Actually, you probably can. You probably can. I believe that many of them are bought off. But again, that's only a theory. I cannot prove that. These are the same number crunchers who had Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives with a mammoth lead over the Liberals month after month after month for 2 years. Poilievre and the Conservatives were on their way to a stupendous victory, and the Liberals were on the way out, perhaps out of existence. Then Justin Trudeau said he was leaving and eventually left. Then U.S. President Donald Trump went after Canada, turned everything upside down in a trade war. The huge Conservative lead, gone, vanished, just like that. New Leger poll has the Liberals under their new leader, Mark Carney, in the lead by 3 points. In the fine print, the Liberals lead everywhere but the prairies. There's only one place where more people have a favorable impression than an unfavorable impression of Poilievre, and that's Alberta. An Angus Reid Institute poll has the Liberal lead pegged at 5 points. Now sit down for this news and don't sit anywhere near breakable items easy to throw. When you put all the polls together and come out with a prediction of how many seats each party could win, well, life has certainly changed in a hurry. Liberals, 177. Conservatives, 132. NDP tanked, left in the dust. A majority government is 172 seats. Yes, you read that right. 177, bigger than 172, a possible Liberal majority government. Now, these are only polls. And when the election is called and the campaign begins in a few days, maybe, the numbers could go any which way. Election campaigns matter. That's why we have them, to test the parties out. It's anybody's game. But even the fighting chance of a fourth term for the Liberals seems so surreal. If you live in Alberta, your mind can flash back to the 2019 election. That's the one where the Conservatives were led by Andrew Scheer. Well, Trudeau hung on to a Liberal minority. If it was up to Alberta, he would have been so gone. In fact, if it was up to Alberta, he would never have been prime minister in the first place. Remember the outrage. Right after the election, the Alberta government, then led by former Premier Jason Kenney, rolled out a fair deal panel to discuss ways Alberta could get a fair deal within Canada. They held meetings. They produced a report with recommendations. Alberta did not get a fair deal within Canada. 2 years later, another election. The Conservatives, led by Erin O'Toole. Trudeau wins again, another minority government, and this time he's propped up by the NDP. Many Albertans were even more pissed off. A third term in office for the Liberals. Of course, if it was up to Alberta, the Liberals would have been punted. What followed is more fights with Liberal Ottawa because there are more attacks from Liberal Ottawa. On the provincial scene, Danielle Smith becomes UCP leader, Premier vowing to promote Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada, much like Quebec. On the federal scene, the Conservatives, under Poilievre, the former Calgary Sun newspaper carrier, were looking to finally put a fork in the Liberals, and now we're not sure what will happen if the Liberals win. There was outrage in 2019. There was outrage in 2021. No one cared what Alberta thought or felt. The Alberta Premier has already said her government would not allow an Ottawa politician to tell the province how to develop its oil and gas. Smith has also already said Albertans are not going to put up with the Liberal policies of the last 10 years, disadvantaging oil and gas. So what does Smith mean by Albertans not putting up with more Liberal crap? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Let's hope we never get to that point, but I think we're already there, my friends. Here's Donald Trump on the Ingraham angle last night.
With Canada than you are with some of our biggest adversaries.
Only
Why?
because it's meant to be our 51st state. And
Okay, but
but listen to this for a second.
We need their territory. They have territorial advantage. We're not going to let them get close to China.
Look,
right?
I deal with every country, indirectly or directly. One of the nastiest countries to deal with is Canada. The people that, now this was Trudeau, the people that good old Justin, I call him Governor Trudeau, his people were nasty, and they weren't telling the truth. They never told the truth. You know that, they'd say, well, we don't charge. Well, they do. They charge tremendous. They charge tremendous. And if you look at dairy products, what they've done to our farmers, I'd go up to Iowa, I'd go up to different places, Nebraska, and they would always complain about Canada, how they get ripped off. Do you know that Canada has a 250% tariff? 250, nobody knows that. They charge us numbers that are crazy. We have a very big deficit with Canada, and there's no reason, much more. We have much more. Just so you understand, we subsidize Canada, and I like Canada. I love Canada. I love Wayne
now
Gretzky.
The Liberal guys,
I love his wife.
The Liberal Party is going to win now in the next election, most likely. And they were down and out. Isn't that going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a Liberal than a
for
conservative.
China, closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a Liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
So your end game is what with them?
My end game is I don't want to have a big deficit. I don't want to see the United States of America, and you say 60 and I say 200, but it doesn't matter. I don't want us to pay 60 or $200 billion to a country that if they were a state, think of this, it would be our biggest, most beautiful, it would be great. This state, it would be cherished. We'd take care of it. The people would pay half what they're paying right now. Canada pays very little for defense. They think we're going to defend them.
We protect them.
What?
We protect them.
We protect them. We protect them. Do you know in NATO they pay less than anybody else? In everything else, they go, we're in the process of buying 48 icebreakers. All of a sudden I see Canada's involved where they're going to get a piece of them. I say, what are they paying? So I got tired of it. Here's the story. I had one of the most successful economies. I had the most successful economy in the history of our country in my first 4 years. We did a great job. Largest tax cuts ever, largest everything. We had right to try, where people were able to use drugs. Stupidly, for many years, they weren't able to use, the far-reaching drugs because they weren't approved yet. Somebody's terminally ill, they couldn't do it. With me, they can do it. We did so many things. We rebuilt our military. Canada doesn't pay for military. They don't give any. They give us nothing, and they are the worst people to negotiate with of everybody.
They had with USMCA. You finally got them around the edge on that, though. You got
no, I got them there, and USMCA is good, but they cheat. An agreement's good, but they cheat. And Mexico cheats also.
But China cheated on your 2019.
Can I tell you what?
Phase one, they totally cheated and dropped it with Biden. You had a great deal.
When Biden took over, he didn't push them. I would call up once every 2 weeks saying you're not living up to the agreement, and they'd buy more corn, more this. So the most we ever did was $15 billion with China, the farmers and everything, and manufacturing.
Yeah.
I had them up to $50 billion, and they were doing it. When Biden got it, do you think Biden called up President Xi and said, you're screwing us?
Canada was meant to be our 51st state. Now, what he said there was, I'd rather deal with liberals than with conservatives, right? So, of course, and this was yesterday, early evening, I think, and then all day today, all over social media, especially X. Oh my God, Donald Trump has just endorsed Mark Carney. Seems to be a stretch to me. All he said was, I'd rather deal with a liberal than a conservative. He did say some bad things about Pierre Poilievre. Didn't even mention his name because he probably doesn't know it. Let's be honest. But can the conservatives make a little bit of hay with this? Well, Pierre Poilievre tried today. He held a press conference in Sudbury, and here's what he had to say.
Clear that President Trump wants the liberals in power because they will keep this country weak. After 10 years in power, the liberals have given us the weakest economy in the G7. They've doubled our housing costs, driven $500 billion to the south, all while Mark Carney was economic advisor to Trudeau, and while Mr. Carney moved his corporate headquarters to New York. Do you know that he moved his headquarters to Trump's hometown 6 days after Trump first threatened to tariff Canada? While these people here were worried about losing their jobs, Mark Carney was busy moving jobs to Trump's hometown. That's exactly the kind of weak, compromised, conflicted leadership that Donald Trump wants, and it's why he endorsed Mark Carney yesterday. What Canadians need, though, is a leader who's tough and firm and stands by his convictions, a leader who will make Canada strong, self-reliant, and stand on its own 2 feet, a leader who will put Canada first.
Tough, strong, stands by his convictions, will put Canada first. But hey, Ukraine! Hey, India! What happened to Pierre Poilievre? Now, I know many of you, PPC bros especially out there, are going to say, he's always been like that, dude. No, that's not what I mean. What I'm talking about is his edge, right? I mean, this is something he was criticized for a lot the past couple of years. Oh, he's too combative. He's too mean-spirited. He's got a bad image. People don't like him because he's mean. He treats the media badly. That's why the conservatives were so far up in the polls. Because he looked like a guy who was willing to take on the media, take on the left-wing establishment, and win and not back down. And these days, he doesn't sound like that at all. Remember this guy?
There are between 20,000 and 500,000 people in Canada illegally. 20,000 to 500,000. They don't know. And they say there could be more. Then we know that there are 30,000 people who've been ordered deported that have not left. We know that for sure. Mm-hmm. Trudeau has lost control of our immigration.
How do you get control?
I will take back control. First of all, we will track down the 30,000 people who've been ordered deported, and I will have them deported from this country. They've been ordered deported. These are people who are not eligible to be here. We will find them and we will deport them.
Do you have the resources for that?
We do. We just have to direct them to the front lines rather than the back office bureaucracies. Secondly, we will have a rapid approach to treating these new and mostly false refugee claims. For example, I think we should signal that there will be what I call a last in, first out. So people who submit claims now because they're frankly international students who want to stay, they're not real refugees, they're not bad people, but they're using the refugee system to try and stay. We have to treat their case immediately so they know that it's not worth it. We have to secure the border so there's no more people coming in illegally and then staying the 14 days necessary in order to be eligible for a refugee application that can take years. We have to stop them from coming in.
Okay, so he didn't sound nasty. He just sounded like a man of his convictions in that particular radio interview he did last year. So what's going on right now with the Liberals? Poilievre is playing right into their hands. And this is an old trick that I used to see in radio all the time. So let's say you've got two different rock stations in one city. All right? Let's say one's called Q97 Rocks. And that's the radio station, the rock radio station that's been around forever. You've been listening to them since you were like 14 years old. Q97. And this new one that started off a few years ago, they're called X109 or whatever. All right, so X109 plays better music. The music they play is newer, it's fresher. They don't play the same songs all the time over and over and over and over again. And so a lot of people start moving over to X109 because they like it. Sure, they're still back at Q97 because that's been a habit for them for years, but now they're sharing a lot of their listening time with X109. So what does Q97 do? This is the heritage station. The Liberals are the heritage ruling party of Canada. Let's not forget that. They've been in power for almost 10 years, and they've held power in this country for the majority of time since the Conservatives lost in 1993. 22 of 30 years, something like crazy like that. So the Liberals are the heritage party. The Liberals are Q97. The Conservatives, Poilievre, is X109. So how do you get the people to come back to you? They mirror the strategy. They mirror the strategy, the exact same strategy of the newcomer, right? So all of a sudden, Q97 starts playing newer music, and they're not playing as many of the same songs over and over and over again. And now they sound just like X109. So what's X109 supposed to do? They have to get even more new and less familiar. And all of a sudden, boom, Q97 wins. And that's exactly what the Liberals are doing. Look at, they've amended their immigration formulas. They even say they're getting rid of the carbon tax. Of course, we know that's not true, but they say they're doing it. They're fooling people. So what is Poilievre supposed to do? He is supposed to say louder, louder, louder that the Liberals are lying. And you have to say it convincingly, my friends. You have to be able to say it with conviction. You have to say it from the heart. So what's Poilievre doing? He's reading from notes now, whereas he never used to do that before. When you sit down, like this is what he did that was brilliant with Jordan Peterson. And he should do this on all of the American talk shows. He should come on this show and he should just talk freely. No notes. Just go on there and speak your heart with conviction, with passion, with emotion. Because he's lost that. And because of that, he's losing people. He's losing voters. I'm not sure where they're going. Are they going right to the Liberals? I mean, they were at 43%, the Conservatives, and now they seem down at 36, 37. So they haven't lost a lot. They've lost enough, but they haven't lost a lot. Where has that support gone? Has it gone to the Liberals? Or are the Liberals getting most of their support from the NDP? The NDP have cratered. They're like at 10 or 11%. They've lost 10 points. So the NDP needs to pick up their socks as well, or they're going to be rump party status in the next parliament. This is bad. But what happens from here if Poilievre does not fight back? The Liberals win. What happens in Alberta? All right. This is an interview that Danielle Smith did sitting on the floor of a hotel room. I think it was in Washington, D.C. when Trump was being inaugurated, or maybe it was in Florida. She was visiting Mar-a-Lago, one or the other. But this was during the initial phases of this trade war between them and us. And listen to what she says here.
Yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly talked about, she was asked specifically if in negotiations with Trump, Canada would consider an energy embargo on the United States. And I want to, as leverage, what do you think, what do you make of what she said?
Well, first of all, it's oil and gas that's owned by the provinces, principally Alberta, and we won't stand for that. And you should never, ever threaten something you cannot do. And I would encourage the minister to look at a map of where Line 5 goes. Line 5 comes down through Michigan to get to Sarnia. And then that feeds the bulk of the supply needed for Ontario and connects with Line 9, which feeds the bulk of the product needed for Quebec. And so if you cut off that line, you are cutting off Ontario and Quebec. So I would encourage the ministers to either understand how our integrated pipeline system works and start looking at ways that we would be able to practically respond, because there's no point in making empty threats that cannot be executed on. So there are other things, I'm sure, that that we'll all talk about collectively, but let's just remember how integrated our markets are with the Enbridge system, the TC Energy system, that we have a product going back and forth across the border every single day. And we cannot do anything that harms Canadians in such a substantial way. So I just don't take that as a credible threat. I'm sure that the U.S. administration won't either. So we should talk about things that we actually can do as opposed to empty threats.
If they were to proceed down that path for some reason, what would be Alberta's response?
Well, they will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners. We just won't stand for that.
If they were to proceed down that path for some reason, what would be Alberta's response?
Well, they will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners. We just won't stand for that. And I don't think Ontarians and Quebec should stand for that as well. They shouldn't be standing by and listening while a federal minister talks about cutting off their energy supply. That's just not on. That makes no sense.
A national unity crisis on their hands. Now, that was 2 months ago she did that particular interview. A couple of weeks ago, she was asked by the left-wing corporate media during a press conference if she had heard anything, any rumblings at all about Alberta independence. And she said, even though she knows that there is, she said, no, I haven't heard anything about that. And the reason she lied to the media simply is because she didn't want that thrust upon her right now. She doesn't need that right now. She's also in the middle of a scandal right now regarding, is it Alberta Health Services again, or something else the NDP is trying to put on her? Either way, she doesn't need any more aggravation at this time. She's been the only premier that stood up against the ridiculousness of Team Canada putting all these stupid counter tariffs on. Yeah, she put a couple of minor ones on. I think it was on wine or something, and maybe VLTs. But she is not touching oil and gas because she knows better than that. But she did say in this interview that we just watched, a national unity crisis. So let me ask you, Albertans who are watching right now, I'm going to oscillate between Facebook, X, YouTube comments, Telegram comments, and Rumble comments. Do you think, honestly, that it's possible that Alberta could vote in favor of independence or joining the United States of America? Now, that might be going from the frying pan into the fire. Who knows? I mean, Trump could come and say, hey, we've got this, we've got that, better taxes, military protection, better medical system, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe you just kind of step away from Confederation for a couple of years, get your head straight, and then see what your options are. Do you think this is a possibility? I want to hear only from Albertans. In the comments, please and thank you. Laura says yes. Angelo, can we talk about Carney's mutant wife that looks like a CIA experiment gone wrong? Yeah, there's been some stuff flying around social media about her the last little while, and maybe we'll look at that one of these nights coming up soon. Shelley says yes. Janetta says yes. Lise says, I live in Alberta, and says yes, yes. Okay, so all you guys are saying yes. Here's my issue with this. Alberta voted the UCP in the last election with, I think, 53% of the vote. The NDP had something like 45% of the vote, and the Liberals tanked. All of the other lefty parties tanked. So it was a two-horse race in Alberta's election last time. 53% would be enough to get Alberta over the line and into independence, but with those same people who voted UCP, all of the people who voted UCP in the last election, vote for Alberta independence is the question. And I think there may be an impediment here. And the impediment would be the two big cities of the province. Alberta's population is nearly 5 million people. That's amazing. Amazing when you sit down and think about how fast and how much Alberta has grown since 1980. It's incredible. Calgary now is around 1.5, 1.6 million. Edmonton is not far behind, maybe 100,000 behind. But a lot of those people are voting in lefty mayors, right? And these mayors are implementing their 15-minute city plans. I'm not so sure about the smaller cities like Red Deer, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat. But the two big cities could be the impediment. And when you put their populations together, which is roughly 3.3 million, maybe 3.2 million, you're talking about the majority of Alberta's population, which again is almost 5 million, not quite, but almost. You got to get it past the big cities. That's where the Alberta Prosperity Project comes in. I'm not exactly sure how active they've been lately. We had Chris Scott on the show a few weeks ago talking about it. And I don't know if there's enough people who agree, because there's a lot of people who want Alberta to separate. I get that. But they all can't seem to agree on what to do. And there's too much fighting, too much infighting going on amongst the separatist-minded in Alberta. And I think Alberta, more than any other province in this country, would have the ability to be able to become its own country. All right, let's get back to the news. Let me throw this up on the screen here. Robbie Starbuck on X, an Obama judge. We talked about this briefly last night. The Obama judge has ordered President Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge to reinstate most, not all, but most of USAID. The answer should be absolutely not. Well, no, you can't do that. If you're following the systems of the United States, Robbie, you should know that. But he goes on to say, if this judge wants waste, fraud, and abuse reinstated, then he can enforce his own order. Oh, wait, he can't. Activist judges can't run our country, period. And there it is right there. I'm gonna lean over here and read this, you guys. For the foregoing reasons, the court finds that defendants' actions taken to shut down USAID on an accelerated basis, including its apparent decision to permanently close USAID headquarters without the approval of a duly appointed USAID officer, likely violated the United States Constitution in multiple ways. Doesn't explain exactly how. and that these actions harmed not only plaintiffs but also the public interest because they deprived the public's elected representatives in Congress of their constitutional authority to decide whether, when, and how to close down an agency created by Congress. Well, first of all, this agency was not created by Congress. It was created by an executive order signed in 1961 by John F. Kennedy Jr. By the way, those files have been released in the last couple of days. Still no smoking guns, if you'll pardon the expression, yet, but you can imagine there's thousands of people poring over them right now. Accordingly, the motion for a preliminary injunction will be granted in part and denied in part. The motion will be granted in that the court will issue the accompanying preliminary injunction. The motion will be otherwise denied. A separate order shall be issued. All right, let's take this off the screen, throw this up. This is Trump again with Laura Ingraham last night on The Angle, talking about this very thing.
We've caught so much fraud, so much waste, so many employees that never showed up to work, and we have a judge from a very liberal state who ruled like that. So bad for our country.
So I guess they closed the department. They're going to have to reopen
the department. Well, we'll be appealing it, I guess. Not I guess. I guarantee you. We will be appealing it. We have rogue judges that are destroying our country.
Oh, yeah, there's more judgments that have been going against Trump and his executive orders in the last little bit. Look at this one here. Here's the judge that ordered transgenders back into the armed services, reversing the Pentagon, citing prior administration policies and the casting of Hamilton, the play, as justification. In other words, she ordered a return to the DEI policies of Joe Biden. Here she is. This is the activist judge who made that ruling. LGBTQ federal judge in D.C. There she is right there. Look at that. These judges cannot be allowed to continue this nonsense. And they're also trying to fight against the deportations. There are marches and there's lawsuits flying left, right, and center. Even Larry Fink of BlackRock came out and started talking about that today, and we'll get to this in just a second. It's a story from GBN. Great Britain's news, but it's about the United States. Hospitals ask parents to identify pronouns and sexual orientation of newborn babies. It's insane. This is going on in New Jersey. Parents are asked whether their babies are male, female, transgender, genderqueer, or if they fit in an additional gender category. Bunch of hospitals have sparked controversy by asking parents to identify the sexual orientation and gender identity of their newborn babies. U.S.-based Inspira Health's sexual orientation and gender identity questionnaire requires new parents to categorize their infants in ways many find absurd. The form asks parents to select whether their baby is male, female, transgender, genderqueer, or if it's an additional gender category. Parents also expected to describe their newborn as lesbian, gay, straight, or heterosexual, self-described, or questioning/unsure. Here it is. There it is right there. There's that questionnaire. Now, I wonder, have parents, do they have the ability to say, go piss up a rope to these people? The questionnaire was created last year to comply with a New Jersey law requiring healthcare providers to collect demographic data in a culturally competent and sensitive manner. But parents, that whole thing needs to stop. But parents and public figures alike have voiced their outrage at the form's existence. That form is completely crazy. And anyone who would dictate a baby's sexual orientation probably has an agenda, said Sandy Anello, mother of two. Identifying my baby as gay on day one is insane, added Carson Rogers, who's currently pregnant. Republican New Jersey State Senator Holly Schepisi, meanwhile, told the New York Post, the entire thing lacks such common sense and serves no purpose whatsoever. Yeah, I agree. Hungarian parliament bans LGBT pride events with amendment to child protection law. There's some good news. Now, getting back to Larry Fink, talking about all of these mass deportations that are going on in the United States. He says, stop! We don't have enough workers.
Deportations and the speed at which this is happening is going to have severe impact on the agricultural sector and the construction sector. I've talked to CEOs in the ag sector, and they remind me that 70% of the men and women who work in the agriculture were not born in the United States. Many of them are U.S. citizens now, many of them have work permits, and many of them don't. And 40% of the construction workers were not born in the United States. You add that up, and what's going on, I think we're going to start seeing, especially when spring and the spring crops arrive, are we going to have enough workers to harvest the crops? And now, you know, with the whole idea that we're going to have to use a private capital to build out this economy, are we going to have enough workers? I've even told members of the Trump team that we're going to run out of electricians as we build out AI data centers. We just don't have enough. So.
Guys like Larry Fink, man, they're the problem. You guys have identified that, which is great. Oh, by the way, on the extension tonight, see, yesterday when we did this interview with Dr. Anne-Marie Yim, she talked extensively about a fellow named Dr. Andreas Nowak. Dr. Nowak, Professor Nowak, a few years ago was giving a lecture online, I believe it was on YouTube or one of the other live video channels, regarding the injections. You know the injections I'm talking about. And was raided by German police while he was on the air. Now, several people last night, I saw that video, I can't find it. Well, our friend Janice found the video today, and we are going to play the video on the extension tonight on shadowdavis.com for all access members. Now, look at this story here. Oh, hang on. Speaking about Larry Fink, let me just back up a little bit. Speaking about Larry Fink and Mark Carney, as we have tonight, and all of these other globalists, we talked about CBDCs, a lot of interest lately. This has been flying around the internet. I even posted this on my Facebook today for BMO customers, and we're hearing that other banks are doing this as well in Canada. Attention to all. New regulations and policies may impact some of your transactions. What? We're getting you ready for the central bank digital programmable currency. You see, cash transactor information will be required for all cash transactions greater than $500 Canadian. This includes cash-to-cash exchanges, third-party deposits, non-customer transactions, and transactions that are not deposits. The following details must be collected: name, address, one piece of photo ID, date of birth, occupation. What? Are you freaking kidding me right now? That's insane. You've already got all that information in your system. I'm carrying the card. Oh, no. You, for $500, I believe, as somebody pointed out today, there's going to be a lot of withdrawals or deposits in the next little while that are $499.99. Now, look at this story here. Let me throw this up on the screen from NPR. German lawmakers approve huge defense and infrastructure spending. This has to do with rearming Europe, this big program they introduced last week, or maybe it was the week before. It has to do, obviously, with the Ukraine war. It has to do with Donald Trump maybe pulling the United States out of this, or somehow brokering a deal for peace between Russia and Ukraine, which seems to be on and off. So before we get into this story, here's an old bit from Norm Macdonald. This is something my grandfather used to say to me, and I found it really interesting. My grandfather immigrated, well, his parents immigrated from Germany in the 1880s to Canada. And he said, keep your eye on the Germans. Now, when he said that to me, I was maybe 15 or 16 years old, and I said, Grandpa, the Germans, they're our allies. And at that time, there were like two countries. There was West Germany, there was East Germany. East Germany was part of the communist bloc. West Germany was a democratic nation that had seemingly, anyway, gotten past this whole, Nazi thing. But now they're rearming Europe, spending huge amount of money to keep that war in Ukraine going. Here is Norm Macdonald.
But I watch the TV, I watch the news, make you afraid, the news, you know? Put all these stories on, Iraq, Iran, North Korea, you know, try to scare you, you know? But does it ever really scare you? Like, you ever wake up in the middle of the night, North Korea! That little tiny country across the ocean. I wonder if they'll get me. Plus, didn't MASH settle that like 20 years ago? Why'd I have to watch that stupid show? There is one country that worries me, though. Not Iraq, not Iran, not North Korea. The only country that really worries me is the country of Germany. I don't know if you guys are history buffs or not, but... in the early part of the previous century, Germany decided to go to war. And who did they go to war with? The world. It had never been tried before. And so you figure that would take about 5 seconds for the world to win, but no, it was actually close. Then about 30 years pass, and Germany decides again to go to war, and again it chooses as its enemy the world. And this time they have that guy, Schrankly, Crankly, that guy, and
Skankly, crankly.
dignify him by saying his name, but I think you know what I'm talking. But you'd think at that point the world will go, listen, Germany, here's the deal. You don't get to be a country no more on account of you keep attacking the world. I mean, what do you think, you're Mars or something?
I just can't help but think that, I mean, look, again, we see this headline from NPR, German lawmakers approve huge defense and infrastructure spending. Sounds very Reiki to me. And this time they wouldn't be attacking the world themselves. This, my friends, to me, screams of the New World Order. I've got a central bank digital currency map, so you can pretty much see the progress of CBDCs worldwide. And before I do that, I want to throw up a quick video here. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so we're going to play you the whole thing on the extension tonight, but this is Dr. Andreas Nowak. What happened in Germany a few years ago as he was live on YouTube?
Parallel gleichzeitig da. Ne? Und es gibt keine Lebensvariante, die nicht existiert.
Now again, remember, I'm going to fast forward it. And I'm not going to play the entire thing because we'll get banned. Okay, so watch this. This is where he starts hearing the pounding on his door. Watch.
Das ist doch gerade ein schönes... Guck mal, wir haben vorhin über Angst gesprochen.
Moment, hier ist gerade die Polizei, bricht gerade die Tür auf. Polizei! Ich will die Hände sehen! Auf dem Boden, unsere Beine!
Okay, so that, my friends, that's Germany. I don't know if Norm Macdonald was that far off the mark there. I know he was trying to be funny, but... All right, so here's the CBDC map. 134 countries, currency unions tracked. So 3 have launched. That's the purple ones. Central African Republic. No, that's not a launch. You see, they use these variants of the same color, so it makes it very hard to track. Let's check Canada, where we're at here. We're in development, looks like here. That's what they say. Over in Germany, European Union, they are in pilot projects right now. But it looks like Russia is too. And what's Canada? Again, development. Mexico in development. United States. That's this one here. Nothing yet. So you can find that at atlanticcouncil.org. atlanticcouncil.org. All right. We've got that full Dr. Andreas Nowak video to play for you. Now, you know, from the beginning, goes about 25 minutes from the beginning until the time when they start hammering on his door, come in and arrest him. And he died a few days later, apparently. Not apparently, he died a few days later. I can't tell you the cause of it because it's unknown. There is some incredible information regarding the injections that he provides and what is in these injections. It is in German. There are subtitles. And so we're going to watch that full thing. We'll also tell you a little bit about Luc Montagnier, the man who discovered HIV and discovered that HIV was in those things before he died just a few years ago. And again, this was brought up last night by Dr. Anne-Marie Yim. If you have not seen that interview, even if you want to watch part of it, you've got to go join the Rumble community or at Shadow Davis on X. And if you want the full interview, become an all-access member at shadowdavis.com. Okay, we're going to start the extension in just a couple of minutes. I want to thank you guys all for being here tonight. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your participation. I love you all, and I appreciate you all, and I will catch you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, for another one. And for All Access, don't forget to join the Telegram community. That's where we do our chatting during the extension. So Shadow at Night community on Telegram. I'll see you there in a couple of minutes. Okay, bye for now.